What's up everybody, Game Over Jesse here with ChampionAshley and FiveJay Gaming to discuss all of the recent Nintendo news. We have new information on Mario, Metroid Prime 4, Pokemon on Switch, and much more, including answering questions sent in from fans like yourself. Each of these videos will be split up into their own video, so let's begin with Mario and Rabbids. It's essentially running at the same resolution as Breath of the Wild, 900p for docked mode and 720 for handheld mode, both at 30 frames per second. And we had a bit of a confusion earlier. I was talking about Mario Odyssey that I might put towards the end of the video where you can hear me completely ruin my credibility as a host. But the same still applies, because in Mario Rabbids Kingdom Battle, like, you don't have this huge open world that you're running around in. You have the small hub world where you have to follow the little Roomba thing around, whatever it... Like, do you guys see what I was talking about? Like, it's like the little circle robot thing that just kind of...
I haven't seen that part of the gameplay yet. I've only seen bits of the tactical battles.
Yeah, well, like, in the hub world, and I believe in the worlds itself, you don't actually play as Mario or any of the other characters as you're traversing. When you move, you're moving this little circle thing that looks like one of those vacuum Roomba things, and as you move it, all of the other characters just follow along behind it. So it's very interesting. But anyways, like, you don't have this huge open world that you're playing around in like in Breath of the Wild, where it's rendering like a huge ocean, mini bosses in the overworld, enemy AI of the bokoblins and stuff, and then like the day-night cycle, all of the physics with the engine and everything. You're not doing all of that. You're rendering a simple turn-based strategy RPG like Mario game. Yeah. And you wouldn't necessarily think it would be that intense on the system, because it's not super realistic graphics like Battlefield, Star Wars, or Call of Duty. It's Mario. You wouldn't really think it would be that graphically intense.
It does look nice, but yeah, you'd think they'd design it specifically to run at maximum settings.
Yeah, like Mario Kart for the Nintendo Switch looks amazing.
Yes.
I would debate that the character models in that game for Mario look better than the character models in Mario and Rabbids. And but you're not really rendering an entire world, you're just rendering the track. So maybe that has something to do with it, but it runs at 1080p and 60 frames per second. Yet Mario and Rabbids is 900p, 30 frames per second. This isn't going to be something that's going to make the game suck or really look bad at all. I don't think anyone looks at Breath of the Wild, which runs the exact same frame rates and the exact same resolution. No one's going to look at that game and say it's ugly. So I don't think this is anything to ruin the experience. But it makes me wonder why. Like, what exactly is causing it not to run at 1080p? Because it doesn't, again, it doesn't look that graphically intense.
Yep. Ashley, go ahead.
Yeah, I was talking. What would be the... It's okay. What would be the point of it being this high of resolution? Because I have been all across the internet, and I saw how people reacted when this game was announced at E3. It was just... Equilibrium's off! Everywhere. And it was just... I did see a lot of people who were curious in this game, but still, the overwhelming response was, nope! So really, what would be the point in putting so much effort into a game that the consumers aren't really going to buy? Because Mario and Rabbids is an extremely far-fetched idea, even by Nintendo standards. And this is not me taking a jab at Nintendo. Remember, this is a girl who makes Nintendo content. It's an extremely far-fetched idea, and it's putting effort into an idea that, from what I've seen, hardly anyone is going to even look at. So really, my question is the same as yours. What would be the point of them putting so much effort into a game that not a lot of people are going to play?
Well, actually, it could be sort of on what you were saying. Why put a lot of effort into something that you don't think is going to sell that well? That could be why it's running at 900p. There's been situations to where, like, you can take a game and have it running on a certain console, but you could have it running on a console of equal power, but not look nearly as good or run at the same frame rate, the same resolution, because instead of taking the time to make it look really amazing and get it playing as best as they could for the Nintendo Switch, maybe they just got it to where it was running okay, and then they just didn't take the time to optimize the game for it to run in 1080p at 60 frames per second or whatever. So it could be a situation like that, to where if they wanted to take the time and optimize it, they could get it running as best as it possibly could, but it looks like maybe they were just like, okay, we have it running at a decent frame rate, at a decent resolution. That's what our goal is. We don't need to take the time to optimize it to make sure that it runs as best as possible. There is, what comes to mind is the Batman Arkham Knight game that ran horrible. Yeah, Arkham Knight, which ran horribly on the PC when it first came out.
So strange.
What happened?
Something fall over.
Yeah.
Your video's still going, that's good.
Yeah. Thankfully it wasn't your, like, modem or anything, because then we'd have a problem.
Yeah. Well, we can still hear each other, that's good.
Yeah. Okay, so my second monitor shut off, but it's still recording, so very odd. Anyways, I'll edit this part out, another blooper.
More bloopers.
Right.
Yay.
We need more of those.
Exactly. So it could be a situation like Batman Arkham Knight, where on PlayStation 4 and Xbox One it ran great, but on the PC, even if you had for the time a really powerful PC, it would still run at like 20 or 30 frames per second and not give you the best experience, even though you were playing on something a lot more powerful than the console counterparts that the game was made for. And it's just because it was poorly optimized to run on the PC. And then they took however many months to work on the game as best as they could and get it running on the PC as best as they could. So it could be a game where they didn't care enough to optimize it, or they could have optimized it and made it look technically as best as they could, but the Switch just wasn't powerful enough. So there's like varying situations of this, which is odd, but I still would like to know why a game that looks like this.
So from what I hear, this is their newest engine that they're going to be using to make all of their games going forward, including like Assassin's Creed and stuff. They were able to make a Mario game in their new engine. And so the good news is, hey, Ubisoft's new engine runs on the Switch. The bad news is it doesn't run at 1080p on the Switch. The other piece that I heard and is very interesting is that apparently Ubisoft didn't get any renders of any kind from Nintendo. So everything that you see there, Ubisoft created on their own. So they didn't get a Mario model from Nintendo at all. They made that Mario, and he looks great. He fits right in. So, but Nintendo has this history of being the company that seems to get way more out of their machine than anybody else who even tries. It's amazing. Like when the 64 came out, all of the developers were, crying because it seemed to have been built specifically around Super Mario 64, and it didn't really seem to work all that well for any other game out there, and took a lot of work to get them to be optimized to run on the 64. Same thing, GameCube, the Wii era especially. Nobody had games that looked nearly as good as what Nintendo made look on the Wii. Yep, exactly. Amazing. Yeah, Wii U, same story. All the Wii U games looked awesome from Nintendo, and then we got a lot of bad ports from other folks. So I'm not all that surprised that Nintendo can get Mario Kart 8 Deluxe to run at 60 frames a second, 1080p, but Ubisoft can't get a tactical game to run at the same specs. Nintendo just seems to really understand their hardware in a way nobody else does.
It's their magic powder,
yeah,
essentially.
Exactly.
They just sprinkle a little dust on the games, and then poof, they're in 60 frames.
Yeah, well, like
they don't have the others.
The same thing kind of happened with on PlayStation's side. If you look at games like Uncharted 4, it's one of the best looking games that you can play, whether it's Xbox One, PC, PlayStation 4, or whatever. Like, the realism of the game and the way everything looks is one of the best, even though you could buy a PC that's 2, 3, even 5 times as powerful as a standard PlayStation 4. It would cost a lot of money, but you could still do it.
Right.
But there's still no games on PC that you would be able to play that looks better than Uncharted 4 does, even though Uncharted 4 is playing on a console that by today's standards is a little underpowered.
Well,
maybe not official games.
Well, let's be honest here. I mean, what would be the point of them making it look better? Because you were saying, like, you were just remarking that it would take a lot of money to get the best looking PC out there. Yeah. And not a lot of customers are going to do that just for graphics. So really, what would be the point of them optimizing it to that level when not a lot of people are going to be doing it anyways? It's exactly the same as what I said in the first place about fan reception to the game in the first place, that not a lot of people are going to play it. So really, what would be the point of it having that high resolution?
Yeah, that was the HD argument for Nintendo in the Wii era. Well, yeah, the HD TVs exist, but most houses don't have them, so we don't care.
Yeah, and it's kind of the same thing now going into the 4K. Like, if you have a PC, you're able to play all of these third-party games in 4K. The PlayStation 4 Pro, the upcoming Xbox Scorpio, can play a lot of games in 4K. There's been some debate that they're going to have trouble running certain games at actual 4K.
Sure.
But it's interesting that Nintendo has the less powerful consoles, but they're still able to create games that look better than a lot of more intense games that use a lot more power. Yeah, and an easy example is if you play certain games on the Dolphin emulator, to where the games run or look exactly the same as they do on the GameCube or the Wii. They're just being displayed in HD. There's not adding higher resolution textures, no higher poly count characters. Everything's basically the same. It's just clearing up the image, and it looks on par or even better than some PlayStation 3, Xbox 360 games at the time, and even now with some PlayStation 4 games. Like, if you put Super Mario Galaxy 2 up against a game like Zombie U that came out on the Wii U by Ubisoft, which was later ported to the Xbox One, PlayStation 4, and PC, that Wii game looks better than that PlayStation 4 game does. And it's just an odd situation to where Nintendo really shows how great they are at developing specifically for a console. They know how to squeeze every ounce of graphical fidelity out of it.
Yeah. They know how to hide the lack of power in really strong art.
Right.
It's the magic powder, man. I've been saying since the beginning.
So with Mario Odyssey coming up at the end of the year releasing, that's the big official Mario game for this year. What do you guys think this means for it? Do you think it's going to be running in the same 720p 30 frames, which I think is obvious for the handheld mode, but do you think it will be able to reach up to 1080p for the docked mode, or do you think this is a sign of what to expect for Mario games on the Switch?
I think that they will give it their all for Mario Odyssey, because they're actually, in contrast to the Mario and Rabbids Kingdom Battle game, Mario Odyssey has been getting way more attention and love from fans everywhere. Like E3, it was all about Mario Odyssey. All of it was about Mario Odyssey.
Yeah.
And Metroid. And
yeah.
Metroid, yeah. So I feel like they are going to put much more effort into Mario Odyssey than they will with Mario and Rabbids. Because I feel like they're almost... I don't really want to jump the gun here and think that they're trying to rival their creation with Super Mario 64, but I feel like they might try to do that. And if they are, then I feel like they will go all in on this and make it the best looking Mario game that we've seen since Galaxy, to be honest.
Yeah, and something I want to state really quick for the people that's watching. I know that debating resolution, especially something as small as 900p to 1080p, is ridiculous because a lot of people won't notice the difference. But we're not really talking about the resolution itself. We're trying to talk about the reasons why. So, like we were saying earlier, there's no obvious reason, anyways, that Mario Cross Rabbids should be running at 900p. It's not this amazing looking game that is using the hardware to its fullest potential. It's like a typical cartoony cel shaded game. So like why not? That's basically why I wanted to discuss this, because again, there's no reason. Like if you compare this game to the way that Breath of the Wild looks, to where Breath of the Wild looks better graphically, with the textures and everything, it is rendering a huge open world. It has all of these different physics that you can lift stuff up, throw things, the wind's blowing, the day-night cycle. So you compare that to
and
Mario
running on the
Rabbids.
Wii U specifically.
Yeah. and yeah, that's another thing. It was first designed for the Wii U and then secondary for the Switch.
Yep.
So it's not even technically optimized to run that well on the Switch, but yet it runs at the same specs that this game does. So it's a bit of an odd situation. It makes me wonder, was Mario Cross Rabbids a Wii U game before it became a Switch game, and that's why it's running at the same specs? But yeah, anyways, moving on to...
I had one other thought there, sorry.
Yeah.
I think it's kind of telling, actually. Do you remember a couple years back how there's a big hubbub about how Nintendo had a survey out? I think it was on a GameStop survey or something along those lines. And there was a question in there about what do you think about resolution 900p, 30 frames per second. I think it's very interesting that suddenly we're seeing several games in that exact resolution and frame rate. I wonder if this is an established minimum performance from Nintendo.
Yeah, that could be something from Nintendo. It's like, hey, this, like whenever the rumors of the PlayStation 4 and the Xbox Scorpio, now it's the Xbox One X, which is a crazy name, but whenever the rumors first came out during that, there was rumors about PlayStation talking to all of the third parties saying, hey, if you're making a game for PlayStation, if you have it on PlayStation 4 and then the PlayStation 4 Pro, it has to at least match these standards on the PlayStation 4 Pro. There was a minimum requirement to have your game released on PlayStation, that it had to run just as good, if not better, on the PlayStation 4 Pro than the PlayStation 4, which in a way would be common sense. Like, you have a more powerful console, so why would it run at a lower spec than on the PlayStation 4? But I think there was one game, I can't remember what it was, to where if you played it on the PlayStation 4, it didn't have like a PlayStation 4 mode to where it would enhance it in any ways, but it would play at a lower frame rate than the normal PlayStation 4 would.
Oh yeah, I remember hearing about that.
I forgot what it was though, but it was a situation where there wasn't a PlayStation 4 Pro patch for it, and whenever the PlayStation 4 Pro would play certain games that was designed for the PlayStation 4 and not for the Pro, it would throttle the GPU and the CPU and everything to run like a typical PlayStation 4 would. and it caused certain games to run at a lower frame rate than they should have. So PlayStation kind of made it like whatever, where it's like, this is the minimum requirement that it must hit, and that might be the minimum requirement for the Switch, to where developers are like, hey, we got it running at 900p, we don't have to do anything else to get it to run higher than that. That's the requirement that we're meeting. So if you enjoy the videos on my channel, please consider subscribing, checking out my second channel focusing on movies and TV shows, and my Patreon, where you can join in as a guest in upcoming videos, watch new videos first. You can have me join in and collaborate on videos for your own channel, have custom artwork or custom avatars made of yourself or for your channel, and much more.